Hey everyone, and welcome back. I know Destiny is in a bit of a stale period right now. We're all kind of waiting for Beyond Light, and the meta has been very established for a very long time. It's been this meta for quite some time, and it's been a while since we've gotten something to shake it up. But on that note, I thought that'd be a good opportunity to make a video I've wanted to do, or a style of video that I've wanted to do for quite some time, and that's a tier list analyzing the current metagame and reflecting on the current metagame. So here we have all our subclasses. We're going to be taking a look at subclasses in this video. Maybe in the future I'll do weapons, or maybe weapon builds plus subclasses. But for this, I'm doing subclasses and subclass builds. I thought it would be impractical and just not realistic to look at a vanilla subclass because no one's playing a vanilla subclass. I wanted to look at the subclass with its best pairing performing at probably its best possible. Now, there are a few rules to this. I want to avoid duplicates as much as possible. I want to look at the most synergistic and unique pairings to each subclass. So yes, there's going to be those of you that are like, but Stompies are the best, or Dragon Shadow is the best. And while I agree that Stompies, Dragon Shadow, Transversives, Dune Marchers, and other movement exotics are incredibly valuable, the thing is those exotics don't require any sort of synergy to get benefit out of. Why? Because movement is valuable in Destiny. So, to avoid me making a tier list of every hunter subclass with Stompies on it, which would be incredibly boring, I'm trying to avoid duplicates, and in scenarios where we have Stompies like that are applicable on so many classes, I either paired something like Dragon Shadow with a subclass that has no good synergistic pairing, or Stompies with something that you see very, very frequently, like Spectral Blades. I will be mentioning the other exotics that can be paired with these subclasses though, and I will be considering them. That being said, let me clarify how I am ranking these and what each of these ranks mean. S tier means it's the best in the game, it's either oppressive or has no other subclass or very few subclasses that can reach a similar skill ceiling. Or it could be both. A tier is very good, it's very competitive, it's a top tier pick, it's got consistent and high impact abilities. B tier is your kind of maybe anti-meta. It's a good, solid pick. It's still competitive, but it's got some flaws, and it's slightly above average. C tier isn't bad. It's just going to be our average tier. Again, some anti-meta picks here as well, but perhaps anti-meta picks that can do something really cool, but take too much to get started as well. Our D tier is going to be our bad tier. This is like, yeah, it's just bad. It needs improvement. So let's get started. This is going to be a longer video, so get comfy, sit tight. I have a large glass of water here. I'm ready to talk a lot because I'm going to be going over these subclass builds in some decent depth, but hopefully not too long for each. And we're going to be starting with Top Tree Golden Gun. Top Tree Gunslinger Outlaw with Young Ahamkara's Spine. Surprisingly enough, I consider this A tier. Why? Because it has a neutral game that loops itself and has high damage output and potential. So the Gunslinger top tree has next to no neutral game. I think there's actually no important perks on that subclass tree that make a difference for your neutral game. But Young Ahamkara's Spine alone, combined with the Trap Knife, gives life to this neutral game and makes it really strong. So a single Trap Knife direct hit with double enhanced impact induction and sealed Ahamkara's Spine will instantly give you back your trip mine. The reason being is because it counts both the hits, the direct impact and the explosion part. They both count as separate hits acknowledged by both the exotic and the mods you can put on it. That'll give you, again, your trip mine instantly. You can already see how this makes a loop of throwing knifing someone, instantly trip mining someone, and then the trip mine replenishes the trip mine's energy again. And that's on hits, not kills, which means you don't actually have to be killing people to constantly be looping your abilities, which makes this incredibly consistent. It gives you very strong area denial by being able to put down a trap knife and a trip mine, and a trip mine with a blast radius that probably can't be avoided because it's insanely large, so much so that it hits around walls at times, and 95% of the time it hits for 160 damage, which makes it nuts because you're making them absolute, which can clean them, which the trap knife can clean them up, or just a simple hand cannon shot. And you can hit multiple targets with this because the blast radius is so massive. Or you can also use this to counter shotgun apes. I use this while sniping with Traveler's Chosen to accelerate the engine a little bit more, or a Demolitionist hand cannon. And I use this while sniping because when people are rushing me, I can trip mine them for massive damage, and I can trap knife them. Or if I don't have my trip mine, I can trap knife, dodge for my trap knife again while backing up and blocking off angles, and then get my trip mine and trip mine them, and do this weird loop of where I can just keep like just barraging them with explosions while they try and ape me to keep them away. Also, at times where you're playing maps like Dead Cliffs, where let's say they're playing on the B side of Divider and you need to get damage on them, you can just stick the trip mine on the wall and it'll usually hit them anywhere throughout Divider, on the close end or the far end depending on where you throw it, for like 160 damage, which opens you up to get a push on the enemy. So again, I think this is definitely A tier. The super is also, I think, the better of the golden guns. What I'll say is maybe not the better, but the more consistent, which in my opinion makes it better. Simply because you're not capped to a rate of fire, so if you miss, it really doesn't matter. You can just spam like literally max rate of fire last word it. And that's useful because if someone's hovering with a shotgun or trying to bait you with a shotgun, there's so many times where I literally just go around the corner, just spamming it already and pre-firing, so that I don't die to them, which is great. Deadeye also gives this golden gun an absurd amount of aim assist, and is one of the only supers in the game that can actually counter the Middle Tree Sentinel, which is, I think, pretty much unbeaten, like not beatable by any other super in the game. It's insanely strong, and this is one of the only ones that can take it down. And for that reason, I think this is A tier. Middle Tree Golden Gun, this is actually Blade Barrage. I put this in C tier because since the nerf to the super, it's a lot more inconsistent. You don't really see those M&K players or even some controller players like throw one volley at one player and then one at another at like completely different sides. That's just not consistent enough anymore. And even when you're doing it against one player, sometimes it finds a way to not get the kill. And especially against a super, that's really bad because this is a shutdown super. You want to use this to counter supers. That's the one guaranteed thing you want it to do, and it doesn't do it all the time. The throwing knives are also harder to utilize than other melee abilities, and while they do have a cool loop of your abilities, you're not really getting a lot back from it. You're getting either your grenade, which is mediocre on this class because it's not an enhanced trip mine, so otherwise the grenades are mediocre, and you're getting your dodge speed or your dodge cooldown speed, which isn't really valuable either because you can get that by other means. So what are you really getting? It's a higher risk, lower reward melee ability that gives you not a whole lot, and a super that's inconsistent. It's very average. Bottom Tree Golden Gun, I put a B tier. Here I've paired it with Lucky Pants simply because the main point of this class's neutral game, this Lodo's neutral game, is the fact that you get a headshot, you get higher stability, and when you get higher stability, not only does it make it easier to shoot, like especially on controller where it's harder to shoot things like hand cannons and you can be a lot more consistent, but it also gives you a wide aim assist cone. Why? Because when you shoot, your aim assist is not going to be reducing as much because the stability stat is what governs that. So you get that nice thick aim assist cone. But not only that, when you pair that with Lucky Pants, you're getting that really tight accuracy cone so that it stays at initial accuracy, meaning you got the wombo combo of cones here. You get the tight accuracy cone, wide aim assist cone, so every shot is at peak forgiveness and performance and consistency. The problem with this though is you need a headshot to get it started, and as you get to a higher level of play, it gets harder and harder to get a headshot to start your engine. That being said, it's a great sniping class because if you get a headshot with a sniper, which isn't too difficult right now, you can do that, and all you need are assists to keep the timer resetting, which is pretty great. Now, depending on how you see it, you could say that this class is A tier, and I think that's a valid place to put it, but I put it at B tier simply because the super is high risk, high reward. Yes, it has a lot going for it. It's very high reward if you get the headshot, but its capped rate of fire means if you don't hit that first shot, you're probably going to die. And people are going to run away from a golden gun anyways. When you're chasing them, if you don't hit that first shot when they're baiting at you or baiting you with a shotgun, you're probably going to die or going to trade. But if you get a headshot, you're going to last away. It's going to last way longer, so they can't run away from you as easily. You can kill supers with it, and you're going to generate additional orbs for your team. Another part of the neutral game, of course, is the fact that it gets that neutral ability to gain super energy, which is nice. But again, I think the super is ultimately pain point of this class. Yes, you have the weighted knife, but again, I think the weighted knife is high risk, high reward. You might not get anything out of it, and that's my problem with it. I think that's what separates these two, is the fact that with the trap knife, you're always guaranteed, you know, you just throw it at the ground at someone, which is not hard to do. It doesn't take any precision. Someone might just walk over it randomly, and you're getting energy back towards your trip mine. So because that's so free and more consistent, that's why I put this at B tier. Way of the Warrior Arc Strider, I'm going to put at D tier. I think it's got a cool combo between the dodge to prime your melee distance and melee kill to get your dodge back. I put that with Gemini Gestures because you can continually take people's radar without cooldown, because you're just going to keep dodging and dodging and dodging and dodging if you're successful with this. The bad part about this, though, is that melees are too hard to pull off, consistently at least, in a world where, yeah, we have one-hit special weapons, we have shotguns, and if your melee is never amounting to a one-hit, even though it does increase the damage, it never gets to a one-hit ability, then there's no real point. You have no apex, no peak that you're going to be hitting where you're at your maximum lethality. So I'm going to put this in D tier. Not to mention the super is very, very bad. It's very easy to kill. It's very slow. It doesn't have a lot of mobility. It's got no damage resistance. And its one ability is like the lethal current for that bonus damage is only relevant against supers, and it doesn't one-hit supers with a light or heavy swipe as far as I know. So this goes into D tier for me. Middle Tree Arc Strider is going to go into B tier. This is with Raiju's Harness or Frosty's. I don't condone swapping, but I have to mention this because Cam made a pretty silly build of it where you use your dodge repeatedly with Dynamo and Distribution to get your super back every single round. And when you use your super, you use it for a pick because it's nearly uncounterable because of the block, which costs nothing thanks to Raiju's. It's nearly uncounterable. You get the pick and then you just cancel your super. And then you get your super next round again. It's a little silly. It's a little ridiculous. And for that reason, if you're playing high intellect with that, the best part of the class is definitely the super. I put it at B tier. The wave melee, I forgot what it's called, is also really good. It is the heart of the neutral game, which isn't a lot, but at least it could be used really well when shotgunning or countering shotgunners, either one, because it's both a cleanup tool and an evasive movement tool, which makes it really cool. Bottom Tree Arc Strider is going to go in A tier. I would debate even S tier, but there's one thing holding this back, and it's the super, funny enough. This class gets a ton of everything. It can be paired with so many exotics and still actually have meaningful synergy with them because it does everything for free. You get free sprint speed bonus, which means you can pair it with things like Stompies or Dragon Shadow or a lightweight weapon to get maximum sprint speed, which is great and synergistic and valuable to a lot of players. You can combo it with 6 Coyote or even the Worm Husk because not only are you going to get the damage resistance on dodge, and those two exotics really allow you to abuse that, but when you sprint, you get faster dodge cooldown, so you don't even have to invest in mobility as much, or you could and just have it all the time. Can you think of a game where you're not going to be sprinting in Destiny? I really can't. So enjoy free dodge cooldown and enjoy free damage reduction, in addition to the fact that your dodge is already breaking all forms of aim assist in the game, yes, even for M&K, all forms of bullet magnetism, and any form of tracking. It is ridiculous. Can you think of a game where you've never been critically wounded? I sure can't, if you're playing aggressively to any degree, so enjoy your free regen of abilities, of grenade and melee abilities, which, by the way, happens to pair with an exotic that gives you double skips to perpetually charge 2 skips at all times with enhanced tracking, which makes it very, very annoying. This class has so many absurd ways to play it, it's crazy, and it's all relatively a very low skill floor, in my opinion. It's very easy to play. The one thing holding it back is the super. It's the fact that it's slow. Even though it has the damage resistance, it's relatively easily killable, and the melees are very inconsistent. So I would put this at A tier. Its neutral game is insane, though. Top Tree Night Stalker is another D tier. I think that this class, a lot of people like to defend it with the camo. Ever since Trials came out, camo was nerfed. Before that, you were able to actually invis, and if you crouched, even when you reappeared, or if you kept sprinting without stopping, even when you reappeared, you'd stay off radar for an extended period of time. That's really cool. You could actually really flank with that pretty well. However, they took that away, and now it's only in the duration of the camo, and, well, now it sucks, because the camo doesn't last long enough, even with this helmet. Sure, you get some abilities back and it's cool, and the idea of using your smoke bomb as a radar ping to manipulate people's radar is really awesome. And I know a lot of people are going to say, why don't you put Gemini Justice with this? I think that is wildly redundant, because the point is you want them to have a radar so you can screw with their radar. However, it doesn't work in practice because there are too many things going against camo, whether it be the fact that you appear as a blip on the radar when you're within 10 meters, or the fact that when you start sprinting, stop sprinting, or crouch, any of those actions, you appear as a blip, and you have no time to work with anyways. Again, you get my point. Camo's not very good, even though it seems good. It doesn't work with a smoke grenade. The smoke grenade won't work because the camo's not good, so you can't really manipulate people. The super is the most inconsistent super I've ever seen. Sometimes it tethers, sometimes people just fly through and don't get suppressed. Sometimes it's late. For that reason, this class is D tier. It's got the right thought, and I think it's really cool, but unfortunately, none of it actually works very well. The next class is going to be Spectral Blade Stompies, which I am so undecided whether this is S tier or A tier. I'm going to put it at S tier for now, simply because the neutral game is not incredible without snipers, without precision weapons. But because we have precision weapons, precision one-hit weapons that are in a pretty absurd place, like snipers, which are very broken right now, like Chaperone, which is very good and always has been and probably always will be, I think that this class gets into S tier because you can make use of Flawless Execution. Flawless Execution, again, is very good with those special weapons and makes it so you can consistently activate it even against top tier players. And even though the wall hacks are only 3 seconds now, it's 3 seconds of complete detailed wall hacks and invis for a duration that could actually make a difference. Aside from that, it has the traditional wombo combo, where is, that if you smoke someone, even the smoke alone might as well be a free kill, because it blinds to a degree and disorients to a degree. It slows, and it does damage. So it's pretty much a free kill if you hit someone with that. But if you wombo them, you're dealing high damage, and it most likely is actually a free kill. The super is S tier. It's one of the best in the game, and it's my pick for one of the best in the game, simply because it is fast. It can't be outran. It can't. It's very, very evasive. The vanilla dodge works in it to break tracking against snipers, and to even use Wormhusk if you wanted to. And it has a light and heavy combo, light swipe, heavy swipe combo that I believe is the fastest in the game, that allows you to pretty much delete other supers incredibly fast, which gives it good dueling potential. And I didn't even mention that while in camo, in the super, it stays off radar and has some of the highest damage resistance in the game. So yeah, I'm going to put this at S tier. Bottom tree, I'm going to put at C tier. I think this class is an interesting neutral game where you, like with the Khepri Sting specifically, neutral game otherwise is not good enough. I'd put it at D tier. But with Khepri Sting, you make yourself camo, and when you make yourself camo, you get detailed wall hacks. You can make your teammates camo at the same time, which has a cool team play and recharges your abilities like your grenade. Then on top of that, you actually boost all your stats, your mobility, resilience, recovery, which is really cool. You pair this with something like Monte Carlo, and you are just getting you're getting your melee, your invis repeatedly, and you get to invis yourself for a longer duration than the dodge invis tree, and that actually allows you to plot your path because of the wall hacks and have a decent amount of time to actually flank and close the gap. So I think its neutral game's really cool with this. The super just sucks though, because sometimes it tracks towards the target and hits, but sometimes it tracks and misses because of the tracking, because the travel speed of the arrow is so slow. And on top of that, it puts you into this weird drift where you're just drifting into the horizon as an easy, awkward target with no control over your movement at all. And then sometimes you just fall off the map and just die. And yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But the neutral game's cool, so we'll give it C tier. Dawnblade top tree with Karnstein armlets. Now, yes, you can use it with transverse. You can use this with transversive. A lot of top tier players do this, but I thought this was the most synergistic pairing that still actually gets play at a top level. Like you see players like Potato use this, and I think that it's still relevant. So I chose to represent it with that. But even if you use it with transversive, it's still S tier. Let's be real. This class has everything. It has a skill ceiling that not much else can reach in this game. It gives you evasiveness through the dodge. It gives you speed to get to angles the fastest with the dodge. You get to fights the fastest with the dodge because of the skating. You get out of fights the fastest with the dodge. And guess what? That all complements snipers the most. And what's the most oppressive weapon right now in the sandbox? Either snipers or mountaintop. And this really, really, really plays to the skill ceiling of a sniper, and it's just incredible what you can do when you can just get in and out of scenarios on a dime and go Mach 10. It kind of breaks map design, to be honest. You also get to play vertically because it has the ability to consume the grenade and get in-air accuracy. And if you're on M&K, well, you're getting in-air accuracy anyways because Icarus grip actually works more consistently, and you can play in the air. That gives you a higher skill ceiling because you have different ways to approach engagements more often, different angles to take, which of course benefits snipers once again. You also do get to play vertically, and that matters a lot simply because most of the game is played at a level playing field, at like this one-dimensional plane. That's why like hunters are so valuable and zombies are valuable because of that. But when you get to just like play at different elevations, you become so much less predictable. It's not funny. Even if you're just out in the open, it's just way less predictable. The map changes so much for someone on the receiving end because of the way you can approach it, which gives this an insanely high skill ceiling, which is why I love the class. Now, the oppressive parts about the class is its melee. The fact that it has such high damage, such high tracking on the melee, and it can even kill you around walls with a slight blast radius is insane. And that pairs with Karnstein, which literally leads to team wipes for top tier players. You see Potato do it time and time again where he activates Karnstein, and it's so consistent that he gets it so frequently, and you'll just wipe a team as a result because he'll keep gaining health continuously. And when you get in-air kills, it just has the class has a neutral ability to simply just give you 50% of all your abilities, like your melee and your grenade, which just add to that cycle to keep using the Karnsteins, and that's where it starts to get a bit oppressive. I would also say that it's oppressive because of the speed of the skating as well. So that definitely very much solidifies this class as S tier. Now, this is the only place in the entire tier list where I've made a separate thing, and that's because I think the class plays drastically different. That's Top Tree Dawnblade with Wings of Sacred Dawn. I'm actually going to put this at A tier. I believe it has S tier potential, but you're both giving up control and gaining control at the same time, and you're gaining consistency. Wings of Sacred Dawn give you a ton of stuff for free. Less flinch, more inner accuracy that stacks with Icarus so that you never have to consume your grenades. You can actually use your grenade as a grenade. It keeps you afloat in the air as well, so you don't have to consume your grenade for that either. So it's again gives you a lot more consistency, a lot more value. Not to mention, I forgot, it also gives you damage resistance, so a 150 hand cannon cannot 3-tap you. So you can even tank shotguns sometimes as well. It's kind of crazy, but you're giving up control on the fact that anytime you want to approach in the air, you're accepting that you either can't until you hit the ground again, or you're going to be staying still in the air against the target. This plays a lot like Halo 5's movement, where the way you want to use this is actually to propel yourself with your skate and your dodge, and then ADS so that you're actually still moving while you're ADSing, you're not being held in place, and that's how a good player would play this class. However, I still think because it's so underrepresented and we haven't seen the best of it, and we can't truly decide if it's S tier at that point, even though I think it has that potential, I'm putting it into A tier. But again, you can argue either. So now we have Middle Tree Dawnblade with the healer nades. The Starfire protocol to give you multiple nades and to get your nades back very quickly. I think it's super unique. I think it's really, really cool, but the class lacks something to give it that stopping power of a support class. And what I mean by that is healing is just not valuable enough against special weapons. Healing's cool, it's good, but it's not great when you can get one hit by a sniper anywhere or one hit by a shotgun. It just isn't enough. Now, if you could alternate your grenades between like damage buff and healing, that'd be insane. Because with Lumina, which a lot of people use with this class, while it's cool and synergistic, it takes a kill to get started. And anytime you take a kill to get started, it's going to be a lot harder to get started and a lot less consistent. The super is neat, And it's cool that it lasts through death, but it's still not great. You really have to just like pop it on top of people and on zones and stuff. So that makes it less lethal, and it's countered by other supers. Not insanely easily if you have shotgunners in the well, but it goes both ways. I think it's not bad, but again, the first reasoning is the more of the reason why I say this is average, especially when you think of top tree Dawnblade being an option. Bottom tree Dawnblade, I don't even know what to say about this. I think it's just D tier. I gave it Promethean Spur here, whatever it's called. I think that's honestly a meme, and me and Cam just couldn't think of anything else synergistic with it. I'd say just give it transversive steps as well if you want. This class has a non-existent melee ability. Half the perks have to do with the super, which, yeah, the super is good for pub stomping, but it doesn't have the speed anymore, so it actually suffers in threes, which makes it a lot less, like, not nearly as good. Everything about this lives in the shadow of top tree Dawnblade, and the inherent Wormhusk Phoenix Dive type thing is what's going for this class and great, but again, in a world with special weapons, is far less valuable. So it gets the D tier. Top tree Stormcaller with Athenian aspects. I'm going to reiterate again, yes, you can use this with transversives and it would still be the same level of, same tier. I'm going to put this in A tier for a couple reasons. Arc Whip is insane. There are very few abilities that will make a team scramble, lose positioning, and sometimes even their train of thought and coordination simply because they are continually doing damage to each other. But by the time they've sorted out the fact that they're chaining, you have this massive opening to push and get a pick and then be really aggressive and clean up the rest of the team. So I think that alone makes this A tier. When you combine it with the fact that Ophidian aspects, though, have synergy where they make the melee have longer distance, and the super gets its own evasiveness and able to bait and beat other supers because of Ionic Blink, which makes it very difficult to kill, whether you're a shotgunner or another super. It's incredible. It's so versatile. You have so much going for yourself in this class. A shotgun melee cleanup tool with the melee. The super can duel other supers because the way the damage ramps up and the way it's evasive. It can like really outduel shotgunners because you blink over them to close the gap. It's crazy. The class is nuts. I definitely think it is A tier. The only thing that's, I think, holding it back from being S tier, and I think you maybe could argue S tier, is it doesn't have anything overly oppressive like the other trees. Maybe pre-nerf Arc Web, I would have said S tier. But now that it's nerfed, it doesn't have anything wildly oppressive like wall hacks with snipes or an ability to get anywhere on the map instantly, or a crazy melee for that. I mean, it has a crazy melee, I guess, but yeah, I digress. Middle tree with Claws of Ahamkara or Geomag. I'm going to put this on B tier, as with our other kind of super regen classes. It's kind of the common theme here. Claws of Ahamkara give this a little bit of a better neutral game by giving yourself two of those ball lightnings, the range melee, which I think that range melee is actually really underrated. It's really great. You can even use it with Karnsteins and it's pretty good. But I think having two of them really ups the neutral game of this class, considering there's not much else going for the neutral game. You're playing this class for the super, and you're using the super as a shutdown to always have guaranteed, or a catalyst, because you're able to, with high intellect, get their super first, especially because of Geomags and high intellect, and then get a pick, get an orb, rest of your team gets supers. They get kills, you get your super back the next round if you're running all the crazy super regen perks, and then you repeat. So that is very good, and that's why you'd want to play that, and that's why I put it at B tier. Bottom tree Storm, I put this at D tier. It lacks everything. It doesn't have any significant abilities. The best part of its neutral game is the longer rifts and the arc souls, which are both pretty insignificant. I gave it Getaway Artist or the what's this called? The Stag. Getaway Artist gives you more arc buddies and enhanced arc buddies, which is neat. Cool. Kind of plays into the class a bit. Or the Stag gives you more rifts, which I think is more useful. More rifts plays into the class's longer rift duration, which plays into the class's arc buddies thing, which is pretty neat. Gives yourself a cool kind of neutral game. However, the super is really bad. Landfall can't be used as a shutdown super, can't kill other supers, and it struggles even killing players. It's so inconsistent. Beyond that, well, you don't have anything else. Your super has no mobility options. It can't catch other players. People can just run away. People can just body you with a shotgun melee really quickly. It's because it's got no evasiveness. It's really bad. Nova Bomb. Now, these classes, I want to mention, these 3 exotics can be interchanged on any of these classes and have like practical usage. Just to put that out there. I just kind of put them with each one that they're best known with, I want to say. Which I've seen a lot of top tier players and even just players in the wild and in quick play using most frequently. Top Tree Nova, I'm going to give B tier because it has one of the best zoning abilities in the game by charging those grenades. I actually think they're really, really strong for zoning, as well as even the charged Axions are surprisingly good. They really stay on target for a while and they can't really be countered other than by Hunter Dodge, unfortunately. But I do think they cause a team to lose their positioning a bit. And the Nova Bomb is the only one that works and has high potential. It does struggle a bit though with direct impacting targets and getting the direct impact off for that radius of all the mini Novas that go off. But when it does work, which I think is more times than not, it works pretty well. So I like this quite a bit for its high potential in its super, and it's a shutdown super that actually works. Middle Tree Nova Bomb, I'm going to put at C tier because, and with Controverse Hold, because it still has really valuable abilities. Handheld Supernova has been nerfed quite a bit, but it's still really strong, especially with Controverse, which people associate it most with, getting your handheld, your one hit back immediately, which allows you to play with a sniper or a fusion a little bit more. You have an anti-shotgun tool inherently. And then you also do have the melee ability, which is really obnoxious. It kind of makes people fly backwards for some reason and take double hits of damage, where it deals quite a bit of damage to clean up kills very easily. Both of these tools are great for countering shotgunners, which is great, again, to pair with fusions or snipers. The super's been nerfed, I want to say so many times that it's not very good. You can't blink as much. It has less duration. It takes longer to charge for your consistent one hit with a massive radius. I don't know. It's too easy to kill in many scenarios. So that's why I make this average. This class has seen so many hits, and it's at the point where I think it's just average and not anything good or great. And definitely not S tier or the best. This is Bottom Tree Nova. This is Devour Tree. I give this Astrocyte Verse. You could give this Transverses as well. You could give Controverse again to the top tree as well to recharge your nades if you want. But I think that this class is also C tier because if you're not using it with Blink, it's not bad. With Blink, it gives it something a little bit more to kind of like increase the speed and kind of like run through enemies, and it's great for pub stomping because Devour is awesome in pub stomping where you can just continuously like roll through enemies, especially with the high mobility and evasiveness of Blink. Again, I think that's awesome, but at a high level, I think Blink has some merit, which is cool on any of these classes, but Devourer just doesn't do enough for me. It requires a kill to take advantage of, right? And anytime that, you know my saying, when it requires a kill, it's less consistent. It takes more to get started against really good players. It doesn't require a kill though, just to consume your nade and gain your health back, which is awesome. But again, with special weapons, with shotguns and snipers, your Devourer could just be meaningless. It could turn the tides of something, but it could be meaningless. The last thing that really puts this into C tier and not B tier, because I really don't think Devour is bad, is the super. The super is crazy inconsistent. I want to say it barely works as a shutdown super against other supers. Way too easily baited. That's what makes this C tier. I believe this is top tree hammers, whatever the shoulder charge tree with hammers. I was talking about this with Cam because I don't have enough experience with it, but he said Mark 44 Standicides is your best pairing other than Dune Marchers, simply because, not because of the overshield, but you get half your shoulder charge energy back on hit, I believe, which increases the best part of the class, which is the melting point shoulder charge. Otherwise, the neutral game is really not good. The super is actually quite good in the fact that it has the shatter effect, but that super's been nerfed quite a bit, so it's not nearly as strong at dueling other supers. It's still very good and consistent and easy to use, but it lacks mobility, and when you lack mobility in a meta all about snipers being very broken, you're bound to get sniped quite a bit. So for that reason, it goes in the average tier for me. I don't know. I could put this in D tier as well, but I think it's C tier. Ashen Wake, Middle Tree, the Game Sager loadout. I think this class is awesome for pub stomping. I think it has a really unique dynamic with the throwing hammer, like the double projectile combo, throwing hammer, and then fusion grenade, get your fusion grenade back, keep killing people with fusion grenade over and over again. I think once you get the engine started, it's really good. But then when you take that into 3s, like, it doesn't come up a lot. Like, it's fun in 6s and it's really explosive and awesome. But it doesn't really come up a lot in 3s because it's harder to close that gap against shotguns and hit the double projectiles, or even just hit them for the fusion grenade, which does still have the potential of one-hitting inherently if you hit on point enough. But it's harder to do against players with good movement, right? And that are great at shotgunning and baiting you. Additionally, in 3s, when, let's say, trials, where all you need is one pick to be aggressive, this ability, this engine that you started gets a lot less valuable. For that reason, I really want to put this in B tier, but I'm going to have to put it in C tier. It's fun, it gets effective once you get it started, but it's just not good enough in 3s. Bottom tree hammers. This is the Sunspot tree with Phoenix Cradle or Heart of Inmost Light. I think Heart of Inmost Light is the most... It's the more competitive option. Reason being is because you can get the one-hit stickies. You give up your barricade, get your one-hit stickies someone, and there you go. You got a Sunspot to use. Your Sunspot then just replenishes all your ability energy and gives you a damage buff to continue being lethal with a pick you already got. So that's really, really good. The super as well. Well, I should talk about the other exotic. Phoenix Cradle is good. Cam made sure I should mention it simply because it has an interesting team play dynamic where you can give other people the buff from your sunspots, but if you play with multiple titans having sunspots, it's kind of crazy where you're all just kind of using your sunspots intertwined and all making sunspots for one another to constantly have these damage buffs and ability energy and all the rest. It's an interesting concept, at least. Although I do think Heart of Inmost Light is more consistent and competitive. The super, although it still suffers the same problems as the other tree, the Shatter tree, I think it's still good. Simply because of how long it lasts. You just throw a hammer at your feet, and the super just lasts forever. It's nuts. It can just outlast anything, which gives it good dueling potential, it still can actually one-hit supers, or like pseudo one-hit, where like you throw a hammer at them, the sunspot gets under them, it starts burning them, and they die. It's got a lot going for it, simply because you can really take your time with it, which is great. I'm going to put this in B tier as a result. Top Tree Striker with Insurmountable Skull Fort. The unlimited shoulder charge is really cool, but I don't think it's great. I'm going to put this at C tier. Reason being is because, once again, shotguns kind of invalidate shoulder charge in many ways. At a lower level, yeah, maybe shoulder charge is a little bit better, but I think most players, if they had to use shoulder charge, are actually using this as a mobility option and not really as a lethal option, which defeats the point of its exotic as a pairing, which at that point you'd probably just use Dune Marchers or something. Most people associate this tree with this, though. What is good about it is that you get double grenades and longer grenade durations for better zoning, but the fact of the matter is that there's better grenades in the game that have better zoning ability. So that is kind of meh. And to top it all off, you get your super, which doesn't last very long and is, again, it's not bad, but because it doesn't last very long, it doesn't do too much a lot of the time. Again, this class is very average. It's got some cool ideas, but very average. Then we have Middle Tree, Code of the Missile with Syntheseps, which I'm going to give A tier. Note, you can also use this with Dune Marcher, as you can with many Titan trees. And Dune Marchers with this class is also really ridiculous. When you pair it with Dune Marchers or Synthos, you have a potential to, if you have people in a group, to actually one-hit them with your Ballistic Slam, which is plenty reason enough to put this in A tier. It's a little bit memey, it's not consistent, but it comes up more than I ever thought because it's a chaotic, weird way to enter an engagement that's hard to counter or hard to manage if you're on the receiving end of it. Otherwise, you have a bunch of neutral benefits on this class, like Inertia Override, that is always active so long as you have ammo, which ammo is not terribly hard to find. Yeah, sure, it requires a kill, but you can leave ammo on the ground, and it's a passive perk that's always going to be active. You get a kill, you slide over ammo, enter another engagement, you get a damage buff, you have more odds of winning the fight. So that is really, really strong in my opinion. To top it off, you have a super that is probably the best shutdown super in the game right now. It actually works. It can shut down nearly every super pretty consistently. And on top of that, you can take other people out while just flying through the air which also counts as a kind of movement option or evasive option flying through the air. This class is really crazy, really consistent. Definitely a top tier pick in my opinion. Bottom tree striker with Dune Marchers is also going to go into A tier. Now, I think this class, it lacks movement ability, which is why most people pair it with Dune Marchers to give it more speed. And when you give it more speed, it gets to get closer and close that gap faster. So you can shoddy-8 people. And what enables that is the fact that Knockout's a perk. And the key thing about Knockout is that it's a neutral perk that is always active. If you shotgun someone and you don't kill them and you leave them one shot, boom, you now have Syntheseps, essentially Synthesep range melee to clean up that shotgun kill with. And the other perk that's active with that all the time is the one where when you get a melee kill, you regen health. Now, I talked about this whole time that regenning health is like not crazy. It's like, yeah, you know, regenning health because of shotguns, you know, it's not the greatest. But when you're in a scenario with multiple players and you can, again, shotgun, melee, and then rubber band everywhere because the game's networking, doesn't know how to, I don't know, it's not very good and just shows you teleporting everywhere. And then you do that to the next player and you just keep shoddy meleeing people and keep gaining health. They have a harder time cleaning you up and a harder time tracking you while you're constantly meleeing them all over the place. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me all the time. It's actually really crazy. And the big thing about it, again, is that those two perks are just neutral abilities that go hand in hand with one another. Even if you didn't get that health regen, Knockout is still insane for allowing you to clean up shotgun kills. This really just lets you play like an ape. You get to just run in fast with Dune Marchers, shotgun, melee, chain a bunch of people, make them weak, regen your health, so now you have an advantage here, and then continue going forward with your crazy melee range. It's crazy synergistic. I think I've already sold you guys on why it's A tier. The super is inconsistent, but at least lasts longer, so it's got something going for it on top of an already good neutral game. The only thing that this really lacks compared to our S tier options, again, is true movement ability, a true evasive movement ability or speed to it. Now we have Sentinel. So I actually have this in the wrong order, sorry. This is Top Tree. Top Tree Sentinel. I'm going to give this B tier because fundamentally it's a decent class. I'd pair it with Synthos or OEM. Yes, you can use OEM with nearly every other class, but a lot of people pair this with OEM when it was at its height, and I think it's still a good pairing because you get to like keep doubling down on those overshields. You get to get the overshield from meleeing people with your melee ability, and then if you're in a gunfight, one-on mass activates, your overshield goes away. You convert on that gunfight because you win it, most likely because of your overshield, and then you get another. You get your health gain, sorry. I don't think it gives overshield anymore. My bad. My point is the overshield from melee helps you win fights. Then the one-eyed mask helps you continue winning fights. And I think that has some cool synergy to it. One-eyed mask has been changed so many times that I can't keep track of it. It's not nearly as popular now, but I do think it's a good benefit for this class. The melees on this class, I believe, also give you health regen, which is nice as well. Again, combined with OEM, I think that's pretty good. But this class does lack in comparison to the Code of the Commander, which we're going to put at A tier, because the Code of the Commander has a nearly unbeatable super. The other tree just has the base Sentinel. This tree has the big blocking wall that gets targets even super stuck in the wall and just burn to death, and they can't do anything about it. You can't even move in it. Barely anything can beat this, whereas other things can drain the super energy of this without because it doesn't get you stuck in that wall and then kill the super. I could also argue that this class has more meaningful neutral game abilities. Maybe it's not as consistent, but it doesn't require a kill. It helps you get kills. And it really plays into the fact that Sentinel as a whole has really great grenades. I forgot to mention, I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, but this class has Bubble. Bubble is very overestimated. It's very counterable right now. I mean, firstly, you can just turn away and not challenge it. But you might be thinking, well, you know, they could use it on a zone in trials and that'll solidify it. Well, a lot of supers can kill a bubble, in my opinion. I think a lot of supers can kill through a bubble. Maybe with not the most ease, but decently consistently. I don't fear bubbles. When I'm in Spectral Blades and I see a bubble, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go kill it. Majority of the times it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think bubble is kind of overrated right now. Otherwise, I was saying with this class really plays into the fact that the Code of the Commander really plays into the fact that Sentinel has great grenades. It's got magnetic grenades, which are great stickies, and that pairs with Heart of Inmost Light for one-shot stickies and detonators. And then you also have Armamentarium for double suppressor nades, which are really, really powerful, even in the neutral game to stop people from jumping, playing vertically, and playing their abilities, or against supers to take them out of super. And then when you get either of these mixed with the Code of the Commander's neutral game, which will mark people for the detonators, and, you know, continuous damage will make them explode, that helps you get kills. That's something that you don't have to get a kill to get your engine started. All you have to do is get grenade hits. Your grenades are awesome anyways, and you start reaping the benefits. And your super is S tier that can pretty much not be countered by any other super in the game other than the top tree Golden Gun. The Sight and Rampart is something that Cam said I have to mention. He said that this is the best pairing for it because if you're playing this class, you can take the route of just unfortunately stalling and playing super the entire time, which is best done with a Sight and Rampart because, or I think that, are they called Sight and Rampart? I don't know what they're called. The Sight and something. The Shooty Barricade. That allows you to stall a lot, and then you can also play High Intellect, Dynamo, and all that kind of stuff, or even just remote connections to shoot through your barricade, and then you get an S tier super, and you just keep winning. So that's his thought behind that. Thought I'd mention it. The last thing on our list is going to be the Bottom Tree Sentinel, which I'm going to put B tier. I think what this class is going for it is Shoulder Charge, specifically with Doomfang, because Doomfang, like the Shoulder Charge will go and like, it's got a cool utility where it will suppress targets, including supers, so you can actually have another way to kill supers other than your suppressor grenades. Then you also have Doomfangs, which if you get a kill with a Shoulder Charge, which isn't terribly difficult, like sure, it's going to be harder against good players with shotguns, but it's not terribly difficult per se or impossible, especially when the reward is 30% of your super, which is nuts, and you get a super where it's not quite as good as the Code of the Commander with the big block that can't be penetrated, but you get the double shield throw, which is obnoxious in its own right. And then the Doomfangs help you chain that. Not to mention that I don't condone it, but it is a part of it's not a part of the game. I don't condone it, but some people do it. You can just swap off of the Doomfangs to something else after you get your super energy and when you go back to your super. So that's another thing that kind of makes it good. So let's recap our whole list. At our S tier, we have Dawnblade with Karnstein or Transversive, I guess. Top Tree Dawnblade, of course. We have Spectral Blade Stompies, or you could say Dragon Shadow or Wormhusk fit there too. A tier, we have Gunslinger Outlaw Top Tree with Ahamkara Spine, the Trapper build. We have Bottom Tree Arcstrider with its various ways to abuse its dodge or cooldowns. We have Top Tree Dawn with Wings of Sacred Dawn. We have Top Tree Storm with Ophidian Aspects or Transversives. We have Middle Tree Code of the Missile Striker with Syntheseps or Dune Marchers. We have Bottom Tree Striker with Dune Marchers. We have Commander Sentinel Middle Tree with its different grenade buffs or the stall build for Intellect. At B tier, we have the Leclerc build of the Golden Gun, Wombo Combo, Cones, Mega Consistency. We have the Super Regen Arcstrider, Middle Tree Arcstrider. Chaos Reach with Geomags. We have the, I believe this is Top Tree Warlock, or sorry, Top Tree Voidwalker. I'm losing my train of thought, sorry. We have the Sunspot Titan, Sunspot, I believe this is Bottom Tree Hammers. Top Tree Sentinel, Bottom Tree Sentinel, C tier, so this is our very average tier, average or tier. We have Blade Barrage, Dragon Shadow, or Ophidia Spade, pick your poison. We have the Bottom Tree Night Stalker with Wall Hacks from Kepris. We have Middle Tree Dawnblade Healer class with Starfire. This is the Middle Tree Nova Bomb, so Nova Warp with Controverse. Bottom Tree Devour with Blink. This is the Top Tree Hammers with Shoulder Charge. Game Sager build, Middle Tree Hammers with the Instant Detonation Stickies. We have Top Tree Unlimited Shoulder Charge Striker. And our D tier, which I can say nearly nothing good about these, unfortunately, is Top Tree Arcstrider Gemini Jester, Top Tree Night Stalker Graviton Forfeit, or even anything else you put on that, to be honest. Bottom Tree Dawnblade with anything you put on it, really. And Bottom Tree, I think, I think that's Bottom Tree Storm, right? The Landfall Storm. That is our tier list. I think that's pretty interesting. If we wanted to take a few minutes, I know this has been a long video, but the closing few minutes to kind of look at this list, I think we're in a place where there is actually a lot of diverse options. To be honest, a lot of these very average things, I know C looks bad, but a lot of these average things are actually still pretty usable in 6s and a lot of fun and pretty lethal too. We've seen what Game Sager does with this build. It's nuts. But in a more competitive scenario, they become less effective, right? So I think that these builds are still good. I have to mention that. And when we look at competitive builds, these are all competitive options. All of these. You could argue with some of these super regen options as some more than others, but I think that these are all competitive options. At the top of the top though, yeah, there are a few S tiers that really do break the mold. Obviously for the reasons I talked about, and I mean, you could see why. I think that Spectral only lives here because of the state of snipers though. I think otherwise I'd put in A tier. But that aside, like without snipers being the way they are, but that aside, I think that these two really do break the mold. Otherwise, we have some really powerful, diverse options in the A tier. It's just some classes that need some love, I think. Some of the C tiers, pretty much, I mean, yes, all of the D tiers need some love, but I think we have more viable options than not. So even though the meta might seem stale, and it might seem like it's pretty well defined, because of some outliers, of course, there's actually a lot of really cool options in the game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a long one, but I really want to go through everything and take a look at this. Thank you for watching. If you guys watched this whole thing, if you sat through this whole thing, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.